Do you know what the date is? Yes, it's the 10th. The 10th of October. And if you follow this channel, you may remember that the 10th is the day where I release a video where I just walk around the yard talking about what's happening, what's changed over the past month, all this kind of thing. But it's also quite significant today because it is a year ago when I first did one of these videos. Can anybody remember why I did this video in the first place? Well, of course it doesn't really matter because I'm going to tell you anyway. I broke my phone. That's right. I broke my phone to the extent where all I could do was record a one-shot video. You know, just press record and then just upload it. And it turned out to be a lot more popular than I was expecting. And that, of course, meant that I thought, well, I'll do that again actually. And so I have done every month. But now I'm beginning to think maybe this should be the last one. But I haven't made my mind up. So now it's time to talk about what's changed in the yard in the past month. Well, this has open, wrong fob, other fob. Yes, behind me here is a lovely Rover 416 in British Racing Green. It has been bought as part of a new channel with my friend Boaty, where we're buying cars and selling them, much like I do already. And this is the first car that we have acquired together. We got it 2 weeks ago from Preston, and it's a V-Reg, and it has loads of MOT on it, and it drives very nicely. But the best bit for me are the seats and the faint old car smell about it, and the lovely red carpet. So far I have done a couple of jobs on it to make this car better, and I'm going to do another job to make this car even more better. But actually it's going up for sale for about £900. I think that's the price. I haven't decided yet. We haven't decided yet. Over here is a car called Harry, as in Harry Seacom. Yep, that's it, that's his name, Harry Seacom. It is a Rover 620 with an automatic gearbox. No, a manual gearbox. And just like all Rovers that don't work, it's filled with a kind of lovely nostalgic smell and other things. But this car needs a catalytic converter and probably the other pipes around it and a fuel pump to work. And the fuel pump's the bit that I believe is going to be awkward because you can't get to it unless you take the tank off. So ramps are needed to save this car, and this car I would like to see saved. I don't have any Rover 600 parts at my disposal, and I often have people asking for things such as all the things that possibly break, like the window regulators and other bits. Glass, I've got no glass, no engines, nothing like that. So ideally this car would be fantastic for me for parts. I want to sell it to somebody who's going to put it back together, and that is why it's remained in exactly the same place, because I have put it up as a project but nobody's decided to buy it just yet. But I can wait. Next to Harry Seacom, of course, is Alfie, Project Alfie, my car, my beloved Rover 45. This car is still running really lovely and smoothly and sweetly. I'm enjoying every moment I get in it and drive it. As you can see, it's filthy and it needs a wash. And I was about to do that wash just now, but then I started making this video instead. Inside it's equally dirty because I just don't get a chance to properly wash the thing or clean it out. That trip indicates there that I have now done 3,620 miles in this car, and I've enjoyed every one of them. I love this car. This car is fantastic, and I'm only going to sell it if I get offered the right stupid amount of money. No, I don't mean that. Obviously I need to bring money in order to keep going, but I really don't want to keep going if I can't have this car. Just over here we have another Rover 45 in green. No, it's definitely not green, it's red. Look at the number plate, that's rather interesting. R400 HHR, particularly relevant to people who know this car because it's an HHR, though it's not a 400, it's a 45. Open up, maybe I've got the wrong key. What if I've got the wrong key? Might have. Yeah, the battery's starting to go a bit goosey. No, I've got the wrong key. For some reason this red always evades me, because obviously it's not Nightfire red, that's a very old one, and it's not Copperleaf red because that's the one in between, but this one is the other red, the later red. What is it called? I cannot remember what's going on. Should we start again with this one? Yeah, there we go, that's the correct one. And this is another saggy headlining job car, not owned by me. In fact, this one is owned by Craig of Rover Revival, and it's here because Boaty and I are selling it, although so far nobody's bought it, and that's why it's here. 84,000 miles. Somebody buy it. If somebody was to buy this car, that would be great, because it would mean I'd be in Craig's good books. That could come in handy for me. Down here we have Ronda, also known as Nigel's deranged cousin. Oh no! Dear, it's going to be ticking like that all night. Let's put a fresh battery on it. That's a bit annoying. Perhaps I shouldn't have opened that after all. Right, I didn't open that again now because I don't want to be messing around having to swap batteries about rather than just talking through this car, because I don't have much time. Although I would have had loads of time considering just washing the car or something like that. But now, no, not really. There has been a deposit paid on this car from a man called Alan. But as you can see, it's still here, and it's still taking up space in the yard. Ideally, I would like this car to no longer take up space in the yard and exchange it for the cash which is left over. But that'll happen at some point, won't it, Alan, hey? Underneath the big grey cover is the SD1, which I have featured a couple of times in videos because of its condition and its potential future, what's going to happen with it, etc. Just had a quick look inside there just to make sure that Joey Tempest or Michael Jackson haven't found home in there. And I don't really believe for 1 second that you'll be considering that that's a possibility, because, well, why would either of them live there? Gregory Peck may be, but neither of those two. Gosh. You may know, but the SD1 is not here for me to work on. It needs a complete body rebuild. No, it needs a complete body rebuild on it. Yes. Okay, so I can't do anything with it besides look at it, move it around, and tell you what I think of it. And that's why it's still in exactly the same condition as it was before. Also, still in the yard is this car, which belongs to Boaty. Is the alarm working on this one? Yep, good. And this is his silver Rover 25 with the CVT gearbox. And it is a jolly nice car, but will it start? No, it won't. That's the problem with cars left in the yard. The batteries will go flat and then suddenly they won't start. And I said that bit, didn't I? I said it because it's what keeps happening. I'll tell you what else I have said about this car before. It's got the most amazingly comfortable seats. Such soft leather. Well, that brings me to a point, actually. This time last month, Brian Johnson was still here. And I say that because that was a silver 25 with leather seats. And the seats weren't as nice as this. And they're not as nice as this. And that has gone to Boaty. So it's kind of strange that Boaty's now got one of my old cars and I've got one of his. Yet this still belongs to him. And the one that he's got still sort of belongs to me. I'd like to explain it, but I'm not bothered, and I don't suppose you are either. But the point being, Brian Johnson is now out of the yard. But it's now called Brian Johnston, because he didn't really believe that Johnson was a real name. He thought it was a cricket player, but I misspelled it, and I hadn't. But going back to this car and all of its loveliness again, This also needs a job that somebody like Craig needs to be taking on and not me. Gosh, it's rather windy. Next to that is lovely little Project Frank, still sat in the same place, although with some bricks in front of it. It's not doing anything besides just sitting in the yard. And the reason for that is it's still as broken as it was before. Although it starts and it runs, it doesn't run particularly well. I have come to the conclusion that it probably is a head gasket failure on this car. And with that in mind, it does make me think that perhaps I should just crack on and do it. If only it wasn't for the fact that it's such a base model, you know, the cooking model, the poverty spec you might say, that doesn't really appeal to me. I don't like them without the wood bits. It's just not Rover. However, it does mean that if that's what it is, it can be fixed. Although any of the other things it could be fixed as well. It's just that I didn't have a clue what it was. I may well get to this one at some point. Yep. Underneath there is the Rover 800 in red that's been here for a little while. It does sort of start. It does sort of move, but it's not going to be for a while. Actually, I don't know whether it will or not. I mean, it's got to go somewhere else to have all the work completed on it. Oh, it's not my car, by the way. So there's another one. I've got loads of space here for cars, but very few of them seem to be mine these days. Next to that is Carl's Seat Ibiza, which, as you can tell by me saying it's Carl's Seat Ibiza, gives it away an awful lot as to whose car it actually is. And that, of course, means it's not my car. But it wouldn't be, would it? It's not the kind of car I'd buy. I don't buy cars like these. I don't make videos about cars like these. Well, I do, but nobody watches them because they're not interested. Another short update really is going to be for Transit Face. Just sat there with his friend Dr. Crane, doing nothing. Nothing except giving a Renault Clio's engine a bed to lie on. That's not much of a life, is it? Eh? Poor old thing. What should I do with Transit Face? Now this is one of those things that keeps on going round and round in my head. Can I justify even having it in the first place? Because I don't think I can. What's it good for? Picking up cars that are already knackered with a prospect of me fixing them. And usually I can't. It just means that if I don't have Transit Face, I'm less likely to buy cars I can't fix. And that might be a good idea. Until, of course, I consider this thing here, Amy Winehouse, which isn't a particularly good car due to its condition. The panels are not much good, although I did actually sell a door because that's just been resprayed. The sunroof has gone. The interior wasn't really much cop in the first place, and it's starting to get a bit damp in here. But it's my car. It's just here, having bits taken off one at a time, helping other cars along the way. So it's doing a good job. It's doing a really good job. And without Transit Face, that couldn't happen because this car has a snapped cam belt, as you may remember. In fact, it has no cam belt because it snapped and disintegrated and disappeared somewhere. Nevertheless, this car has got to be finished off at some point and have the shell sent off to car heaven. Something a bit more interesting now with, yes, an MGTF. An MGTF in black. And any car that takes its place here in the yard always finds itself with a moustache made of dirt. Now this car is all mine. And not only that, it has a glass rear window, which is nice. There seems to be a condensation in there. And it's dry. It's almost completely dry. And when I say completely dry, I mean it does have a bit of kind of condensation on the roof here. But this is a lovely car. It's lovely. I bought this off my friend David, and I intend on bunging it back on the road as soon as I can. So what does it need? It needs some things. It needs 2 seals welding. It needs some brake lines. It needs possibly a couple of tyres. And then that might be it. It has been here for a couple of weeks now, so it starts. It starts. Not only does it start, it sounds spot on. That's very, very sweet indeed. Look inside the boot, it's all lovely and dry, so there's no water ingress anywhere. And then that's where the engine lives, under there, where it should do. And all working nicely. I would say I've never had my own soft top sports car before, but I have. There's one over there. However, I'm very, very excited to have this one running and driving and being on the road and just enjoying my own company in it. Do you know what I haven't done with this car? Very, very strange. I haven't given it a name, which is really odd because normally they end up with names, but so much just not happened. So what do they call it? Big custodiers? Suggestions. Let's not forget about the other MGTF over here, which now this car needs quite a few more bits sorting out, such as the door card and the fact that that door won't open from the outside, the leaky roof, a few other bits in here. There's no engine cover, and no engine cover means it's noisy. No engine cover, no exhaust means the battery's flat. Yeah, alright, it doesn't matter. I was going to demonstrate just how loud it is to have the engine right behind you there with no cover and no exhaust on it, because of course this car doesn't have a catalytic converter because somebody took it off. Which means it's another thing I've got to find for this car amongst the other bits. This roof certainly has seen better days, and I don't think it's particularly watertight. Underneath here though we have the 1.6K series engine, which now works. Yeah, I did a mend on it. In fact, I did a mend on it. I was rather excited and I was rather vocal, and it's just, well, you should see the video. I was really happy about it. I was, you know. Yeah, do you know what was wrong with it? Yeah, you do, because you watched the video. If you didn't watch the video, then I'll tell you. The head bolts hadn't been tightened down. So, although it's got a new head gasket on it, new head bolts, all sorts of new bits on there, it was a non-runner, no compression at all. Now it has compression, now it runs, provided the battery is actually charged. So far I've not had a look underneath this to see what the bodywork's like, but that all sounds like it's not had any filler in it at least. That car is called Knackered Horse, but this horse is on the mend now at the Project Nigel vets, and hopefully things will happen soon. And there's only so much I can do at once. I can't multitask, for example. You can't multitask with fixing cars. You can't fix two at the same time, not physically at the same time. So, you know, don't get your hopes up, but it will be mended at some point. Now, unless you live in Brazil, no, even that's not an excuse. Unless you don't live at all, then you'll know what's going on here. I would be quite surprised by anybody saying they've not seen this car now. Anybody that knows about Rovers or likes Rovers or knows about Rovers, every person I meet tells me that they have seen this car somewhere, usually just on the internet. Yeah, showing off, trying to get a date. I would describe Nigel as a girl. You know, that kind of girl at school that nobody was really interested in. She's just doing her homework. She wasn't showing off. She wasn't the kind of girl the boys chase. No, they were chasing all the BMWs and Porsches and Audis. But this little Nigel was a very just a hard-working little girl that nobody really seemed to be that interested in. But of course what happens is that years and years go by, and those quiet ones are the ones that come back with something a bit more interesting under the belt. And this lovely young lady comes back much more vibrant, much more interesting than you could possibly have ever imagined. Not to everybody's taste, but full of tattoos and piercings and full of confidence. all the kind of things that would put the other cars to shame, girls to shame. Nigel has had a great year this year. It's had a great few years actually. It's had so much attention. It's had so many new things. It's a happy car and it remains to be happy. But it's almost time for it to retire for the year. Hibernate. Not actually go inside or anything, but probably just wait till next year before anything new happens. Then there is the question of what new could happen to it. It doesn't need anything else. It's always got the possibility of another panel change or something like that, or wheel changes, but it doesn't actually need anything. That's the point. It doesn't need anything. It probably won't get anything, but it will. Yeah, it definitely will. It might do. I don't know. I haven't made my mind up. There is a possibility of this car having a heart transplant, having another engine. But I mean, the only trouble is the engine that it's got is perfectly fine. The 1.4K series, rebuilt by me and my floppy hands, has made this car even more reliable than it was beforehand, as if that was possible. Right, on to the next thing. This here is called Lady Charlotte of Southport. The name chosen by Mr. Boaty because of its origin. It was from a dealership in Southport, and he came up with some strange and convoluted explanation as to why that was its name. Yeah, no, I'm happy with that name. It'll do. It's quite catchy actually. So what's wrong with this then? The same thing as before. For a start, as you can see by the condensation on the inside, damp and mustiness and stuff going green. But this can all be cleaned back up again. You don't tend to clean up cars that aren't going anywhere, and still this one isn't, because it has an immobilizer issue. What does it? I don't know. It has an issue, and it's had some attention from a really very friendly, very helpful young chap that came up from somewhere like Nottingham to see if he could get it going. He plugged it into his variety of computers that he has, and with his knowledge of these engines and immobilizers, managed to find the ECO code, or EKO code. It's an emergency code to turn the immobilizer off. But although he found it, it still doesn't work. So there's a possibility of either a break in the cable somewhere between one unit and another, or in fact the fuse box, which is probably the most likely. Oh gosh, it is rather damp down there. He's had one job so far, which was this. The electric window switch pack has been resoldered by Senior Mustard, and that was done after I'd had a go and made it worse. So now that one thing at least works very well. This is the lower lockup that gets water, and it's busy. Another car that's left the yard is that one called Benny Jazzmax. Benny Jazzmax, the ZR120 in ignition blue. That was a very, very lovely car, and it now has a very appreciative new owner. Although I've since developed a couple of rather annoying little issues. Sorry, what can I do? These things happen. And finally, Rhiannon. The Project Drive Rover 45 in a very dark metallic blue. That's here, and if you've watched any recent videos, you'll know this has just had the head gasket done on it. Head gasket, yeah. Head gasket, which was one of the most tedious head gaskets I've ever done, due to a couple of unforeseen problems that were all my fault. And I'm perfectly happy to admit that, because I'm useless at this kind of thing. Although I do get it right eventually. It just takes me twice as long, 3 times, maybe 4 times or 5 times as long as what it would take somebody who actually knows what they're doing to do it, instead of me doing it. But all of the problems ironed out, and it's going to make somebody a very, very nice little Rover very soon, because it will be going for sale very soon indeed. As far as stuff going on in the lockup's concerned, there's been quite a lot happening actually. For one thing, I've got 2 new bikes, children's bikes for my girls, given to me by my friend Richard, who is a super friendly and generous man. And I'd like to thank him lots more for that, because, well, it's just nice when people are nice. And speaking of people being nice, there's been an awful lot of niceness going on in and around the yard since last month, due to some not niceness going on. My lockup got broken into and my impact driver taken, but without the battery pack. So it's, well, they did have the battery pack, but they didn't have the charger, so it's soon become useless. Plus some bolt cutters and basically my interest in actually being there for about 2 days disappeared, whilst I felt sorry for myself. But with the help of my friend Boaty and many other people, I got a new tool, and I got some donations towards the actual cause of this Nigel thingy going on in the first place, and I'm exceedingly grateful for this. It was very humbling experience, and you know, it's nice to be able to witness some fabulous humanity from people. Just thanks again, and thanks plenty more times. I'm very appreciative of this particular thing.